Now, what an interesting thing to do. Now, we also know that Warren Buffett is what kind of an individual? He's a capitalist. But all of a sudden, he's become very, very interested in becoming a social capitalist. Okay? In other words, devoting monies and or assets for the social good. He created a foundation for his wife. I think it was $3 billion, and then each of his children, $1 billion. But he put $40 billion in the Bill and Melinda Gates Family Foundation. Now, what's going on there? Why would he do that? We do know that Warren Buffett understands what? Control, flexibility, and tax minimization. Do you know that when Bill Gates was asked what the key to his success was, do you know what his answer was? And it just dumbfounded everybody. He says, I studied and I know the Internal Revenue Code better than anybody else. And everybody was just stunned at that. He took time to understand and know the code. Now, what's interesting is when Warren Buffett donated all of that money to the Bill Gates Foundation, what do you think Bill Gates did with that $40 billion? He invested it. Well, if you're going to invest that money, why not invest it with somebody who's really, really good on maximizing or creating substantial returns? A gentleman by the name of Warren Buffett. So do you see what happened? Warren Buffett took money out of his estate, donated it to a recognized 501c3 or family foundation. The family foundation, their first responsibility is to receive the donation. Their second responsibility is to manage it. They then took the monies and then they invested them back with Warren Buffett's organization. Is there anything wrong with that? Not at all. But what did Warren Buffett accomplish with that strategy? Because that's what it is. It's a wealth-building strategy. What did he accomplish? Do you think Warren Buffett is thinking in terms of who the beneficiary of his estate is going to be? Absolutely. Am I going to have this probated? Am I going to have it go to my children? Or am I going to devote it to charitable purposes? And he's now building his exit strategy and ensuring that it's going to go to the betterment of mankind or society. Okay? And again, these are big names, these are big amounts of dollars, but I want you to know that they're no different than you and I when it comes to what? Our estate, our family, the decisions that are involved. And you know, the thing of it is just as families are unique, so is every estate unique. Because there's no two estates that are alike. There are no two families that are alike. And you know what? When we come over to the Private Family Foundation, there's no two foundations that are alike. They're all unique, they're all different, because families are different. But nevertheless, they're governed by the same rules, same disciplines, and they can all create outcomes that are significant. And that's what makes this such a great opportunity. All right, now let me throw some numbers up here to kind of give you another perspective. And I'm just going to use a number that's easy to do percentages with. Okay, and you can add zeros, you can take away zeros. I think that's irrelevant. In fact, when it comes to wealth, the perception out there is that no matter how much you have, you never have enough. That's the perception. But the reality is what? What you have is what you have. That's the reality. And the reality of it is what you have is a responsibility. And the more you exert or exercise your ability to plan and utilize that responsibility, the more awareness, the more freedom, the more choices that you're going to have. But again, if you freely choose to do nothing, what happens? You become a victim rather than somebody that can make a difference. Okay, let's say that you make an adjusted gross income of $100,000 a year. All right? Now, by having a private family foundation, a private foundation in place, you can donate up to 30% of that $100,000 to the foundation every year and reduce your tax liability on $100,000 to $70,000. Okay? Now, these may not be the exact tax bracket percentages, but let's say that the tax liability on $100,000, depending on how many dependents you have, and there's a lot of other factors that are involved, but let's say the tax bracket or the tax liability on $100,000 is 28%. Okay? If we do nothing, if we do no planning, and that is our bottom line number, then we know that how much is going to go out in involuntary social capital. $28,000. It's pretty simple. Now you know why I'm using that number. On the other hand, if we exercise or utilize this window of opportunity by donating money and or assets that equal 30% of that, or less, or exceeding it, depending on what you do, we can subsequently reduce our liability from $100,000. Now the liability is on $70,000, which actually drops us into a whole nother tax bracket, and let's say that's 18%. So you have a tax savings just simply by doing what? Implementing this 30%. Okay? Now, when Bill Gates donated equity or stock from his personal estate to the foundation, he was able to deduct up to 30% of his adjusted gross income, or $30,000 in this case, or in his case, probably $30 million or whatever. All right? Now, what if what we donate to the foundation exceeds 30%? What happens to the surplus or the extra? It gets carried over to the next year. If your donations fall less than 30%, it's less than 30%. You just didn't utilize the full window of opportunity. Okay? So, let's say it's real estate. Real estate's kind of a unique asset, is it not? Now, Ruth, are you from California? Okay. California just is an interesting state when it comes to real estate, isn't it? Let's say that you bought a piece of property 20 years ago for $100,000. What do you think it'd be worth today in California?
Probably $750,000.
Okay, 750. Let's just make it $1 million. All right, the number's not so important as much as there's a substantial increase. There's a substantial appreciation. Now, think about all of the pieces, think about all of the properties or assets that are sitting idle because of one factor. If we sell this property, we're going to experience a capital gain, and I think we'll just sit on it and see what happens. Maybe the market will go up more, and then we'll have the money to pay that capital gains tax. But as we know, the more it appreciates, that tax is going to go right with it. So it's really a flawed thinking, but there's many people that are just simply sitting on assets that are non-productive because of what? This eroding factor called taxes. So they do nothing. Now, what if we could eliminate that eroding factor? What if we could eliminate that kind of thinking by simply taking this piece of real estate that's now worth $1 million, we donate it simply by changing the deed from your name to the name of the foundation. It's now here, and then we sell the piece of real estate. And we recover all $1 million. No capital gains tax. So we recovered potentially $200,000 to $300,000, which is 200,000 times a return times 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It represents a huge amount of potential as far as capital. All right? Now, one thing about real estate is you can only deduct the basis value of that real estate. So if we paid $100,000 for the real estate, then that's how much we can apply to the 30%. Okay, so in this case, it exceeds the 30%. So now we can take 1 year plus 5 more years to recapture the entire basis value of that property. If it goes past that, then we just simply lose out. But the point I want to make is this. When we take this piece of real estate out of our personal estate and we put it over here in our charitable estate, what have we now done with this asset? Because over here it was just sitting idle. What have we done with that asset over here? We put it to work. Okay? We sold it, we recaptured the capital, we're investing it, we're diversifying it, we're putting it to work, and we're experiencing that 691% return, which I'll talk about in the workshop, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay? But the point I'm trying to make is, does this not represent an opportunity as an exit strategy? And this is what you're seeing with the very, very wealthy as far as their estate planning and their financial planning, is they now have an exit strategy that determines, or they determine, who the beneficiary of their stuff is going to be, because this entity here exists in perpetuity. It will exist forever unless, or the trustees decide we want to conclude or close down this charitable enterprise or charitable estate. Other than that, it can go on and on and on. Now, think about the potential of that. Here's an interesting book. This is published by the Council on Foundations. It's called the Family Foundation Retreat Guide. Okay? Let me just read something real quick because it's interesting. And the fact that it's in writing, it must be true, right? It's not my opinion. But here's what they write. What is a family foundation retreat? And as I read this, I just want you to think about the possibilities. A family foundation retreat is a gathering of family members responsible for the governance of a family foundation. The retreat offers an opportunity for members to spend more time together than is usually the case. Often it is held in a location that allows for recreation or leisure activities as well. Although there must be some framework for the retreat, time is not as tightly scheduled as in a regular board meeting, thus allowing for more in-depth discussion of topics of interest. A board retreat will frequently focus on planning for the future. Boy, what a novel idea. Having a family get together periodically and plan for the future. Reviewing the foundation's core mission and purpose, which is one of the things we're going to do in the workshop. We're going to create a family mission statement. And the donor's or family's values in relation to the foundation's work. Okay? Now, in that answer of what a family foundation retreat is, there was no mention of money in there. It was all about what? Planning, future, interacting, talking, and developing or discovering what are our beliefs, what are our values, where are we going to best evidence who and what we are as a family. Is it going to happen here, or is it going to happen here? So think about the foundation as a charitable estate that what? That exemplifies who and what you are as a family. Now, what is a family? It's you and I. Doesn't matter whether you're a single parent, doesn't matter whether the kids are grown up and moved on. It's a family is a family. Okay? And families have value and they have worth. And I would dare say, based on my experience, what I've observed, what I've seen, this is where families come alive. Over here, families are continually challenged because why? You've got all of these forces at work that are putting pressure on the income providers, the moms and the dads, the kids and everything else, because over here the perception is no matter how much we have, it's never enough. And you know that that's a true mindset as to what people are thinking. But what the foundation does is it provides us another option, another way of looking at things, another way of experiencing what I call the quality of life. In other words, this over here can become what we call your perfect calendar. Okay? Now let's have some fun with that for a minute. Let's say that money, assets, all of this stuff over here, it's done. You have everything that you need, everything that you require, and because of that, you now have a permission slip to go and engage in those activities that matter most to you, or those things that you really have a passion for. Now, if that were the case right now at this moment, what would you be doing? Have some fun with that. What would you be doing? What are the things that you have a passion for, or the things that matter most to you in your life? And what I want you to do this evening is, if you get a chance, I want you to take some time and I want you to really explore that, and I want you to start filling this side of the board up with those things that matter most to you and the things that you have a passion for. Okay? Now, for some people, you know, it's doing family history. Some it's missionary work. Some it's amateur sports. You know, we've got an individual who has a passion for golf. And you know what his foundation is doing now? He goes around to the high schools in the state of Utah and he's introducing golf to the young women. And you know what he'll tell you? He says, I never, you know, as much as I love playing golf, I never have a problem finding a partner to golf with anymore. And now he sponsors tournaments and everything. But he's having a blast because he's living his perfect calendar. Now, the promotion of amateur sports is a recognized charitable activity. It's right in 501c3. That's what it is. And that's what he's done. So you can really make this list a lengthy list, but what it represents is what your passion is all about. Now, think about this. If this list is full, and these are the things that matter most to us, Why do we spend 5% of our time over here and 95% of our time over here?